Alright. This is gonna be a very long, in-depth look at basically everything that I've accumulated throughout playing Crusader Kings. I have, at the moment, I think about 500–600 hours in the game, so not the most in the world, but still played a decent chunk. I have managed to essentially win the game, trying several different starts. And I've learned a lot what feels to be the best strategies, the fastest, the most efficient to succeed with different starts. So let's get going. So we get right into the game. So you have obviously your two different starting dates. Starting at 1066 is far easier, I would say, than 867, depending a bit on what you're playing. I guess playing a tribal doesn't really matter too much. Playing as a feudal can be a little rough, starting at 867. And the clan is probably the strongest any start. But we'll start with the 1066, I think, for this explanation, because you have more unlocked, so it's easier to go over more things starting at that point. But it's not a huge deal. It's still fairly similar starting at either. It's more your options as a player are a bit more limited in 867. But it obviously depends. So mostly looking at it from the very beginning. Like picking any of the stronger factions, I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory on how to go forward. So I'll be mostly focusing this on starting as a tiny place. Like, let's say you start like this tiny place here, or you know, any tiny place like out of this island. Pretty weak start. Another scary spot would be like starting as this tiny guy close to all other. Uh, Something like that are definitely the hardest starts. Like Malta can be tricky unless you get it going early. Obviously, starting within any kingdom is, I would say, far easier. It's limiting you a bit more, but it's overall easier. The only thing you can't do starting inside is mostly change your religion, because then you're gonna get bullied by your ruler. But as long as you don't change your religion, it's super safe starting inside any. So I feel like most people will play feudal, and I would say feudal is the hardest to play. So I'll mostly focus on picking a feudal society in this one, but we'll get a bit over the other ones. So like a pretty difficult start as a feudal would probably be like one of the tiny ones here in Ireland, maybe. We'll just take one of these for simplicity's sake, or maybe yeah, insular. Yeah, we'll go with that. So we'll go game rules. We'll always turn on our Iron Man. For YouTube friendliness, we're gonna turn this off. So here in the settings, if you're only interested in just basic settings, you'll just turn on our Iron Man and go. But there are a few things in here that you can actually change that makes the game easier. I would definitely say that going for inverted gender equality, so everyone is playing women instead of men, is an advantage for the player. It is allowed even for the achievement collection thing, but it is mostly easier because a lot of the strong factions have like special units or whatever, and when you flip it over to females, some of them will lose their special units and get weaker. For example, here, if I go on gender equality changed here, this guy, for example, he starts with about, I think, 2,000 special soldiers, and if you swap it to female, it will be his daughter, I think, that rules England, and he will be far weaker. He will instantly lose to this guy because of that, usually because he doesn't get flipped to a woman, so he keeps his special soldiers and will decimate England. But just an example of how that can make it easier. But generally, it doesn't matter too much. It's more of a flavor thing than anything else. But I would say it is a bit easier to play women start than a men start. Um, there are a few other settings here that you can change and still keep achievements on, but they don't matter too much. So we're just gonna go for a completely normal here. We're just changing that for YouTube's sake. Then we'll just pick a little guy out here in Scotland for this. Because like I said, I think feudal is the hardest to get started with. I think feudal is very powerful. I definitely think tribes obviously theoretically the weakest, but it's easier to as a new player. It's easier to play tribal. So right away, off the bat, what do you want to think about? Do you want to think about your lord stats? I would say that's like the number one thing that you want to look at. So, what do I think about these trees? What are good? What are bad? So, right off the bat, if you want to know what I think is the most overpowered and strong thing to pick is stewardship. Straight off the bat. And there's one simple reason. It's this right here. It's my domain. This perk is incredibly broken. This is for playing feudal mostly, and clan. For if you're playing tribal, this is not as good. But for both feudal and clan, this trait is beyond broken, and I have no clue what they were thinking when they made this. It's just way too good. For one simple reason, really. It only has a 2-year cooldown. If you compare it to at any costs, which has a similar value, and you get it way later, meaning this should theoretically be more powerful. But if you compare these two, this one you only need 2 points to get this. This one you need 7, 8 points to get. And they do roughly the same thing. Only this one, first of all, it costs 150 prestige, and it gives you about the same thing. But this one has a 5-year cooldown, this one has a 2-year cooldown, meaning in a 10-year period you can use this one 5 times and this one 2 times. And that is a huge deal. Obviously, both are great to have, but just the fact that you can just go in here and get 2 points here, then you can go into something else. Like honestly, on almost every single character you're playing, at least until you're set, like no matter what your character is good at, just getting these 2 points and then going into whatever you want is pretty worth. Now, obviously there is one limiting factor to It's My Domain, and that is you need to have a major vassal, meaning you need a vassal that owns territory, so you can't use this at all until you are a duke, because you need to be a duke to be able to have a county vassal. But essentially you just want to get a duke as quickly as possible, get into My Domain. The fact that it's 2 years shouldn't be 2 years. If you compare it to this one, that's 5. This one should also be 5 to balance it. If this one was 5 years, I still think you should probably grab this right away. But then it would at least not be that insane. It would probably not be a must grab. But as it stands right now, I would say My Domain must grab. Just essentially, as soon as you get a duke, and you have. So let's for example say that right now I just go grab these 2 here, and create the Duchy of Leinster. Let's say that's what I start out doing. Then I would give one of these 3 cities to a random person. I know that makes you weaker, because I can hold 4, and I would then have 3. I would still give this to my heir, probably, if I could. So I will get it back later. I would give this to my heir, just so I can proc My Domain. Losing an entire city, just even in the early game, just to proc It's My Domain, it's worth it. This is so ridiculous. And if you can, because it's random what you get, but if you can, you should always pick the one that gives you gold, dread, and tyranny. You should always pick that one as you can, because for some reason, the one with the lowest drawback gives the most gold. Because that one gives you both a lot of gold and dread, and dread is positive, but you gain tyranny, and you will think, oh, gaining some tyranny is bad, because then people will hate you, but it doesn't matter that you're gaining tyranny, because the tyranny gain on that pick is way too low to actually matter. And it gives the most gold. So the one with the lowest drawback gives the most gold. So always pick that one if you can. It's a non-question. But yeah. Let's look over some other things that are also very good. Going down these 3 points here are also incredibly good. The other side here is not even close to that relevant. But I like to, a lot of the time, go just 2 here and 3 here. At least if I'm about to hit a new age and get new buildings, I love going into these 3 as well here, because the development growth in capital, if you can put your capital on like any city that already has some decent development growth increases, this one will just give you so much gold. And these 2 just build faster and build cheaper. So yeah. So sometimes, even if my guy is a main stewardship, I sometimes only go these 3, and then I swap off. Because the other ones, while this is good, I sometimes go into War Profiteer if I have some money issues and I need to go to war a lot. So this one is also pretty good. The other ones here aren't that good. This one can be insane if you're going for some stress builds, but it can be tricky to keep that afloat. But this one can be really strong if you decide to go like stress level 2 or stress level 3. But that's, for a beginner, I wouldn't recommend that, because that's a lot of balancing, and I would say you need more in-depth, a bit more knowledge of the game before you would try something like that. But this one can be incredibly powerful too. But yeah, these 2, these 3, so strong. If you're playing under someone, obviously this one is really good to just claim throne. Otherwise, I generally stay away from this one here. Most of these are not that good, honestly. Like, yeah, it protects you from vassals, it gives you some minus in tyranny. Like, if you're having problems with tyranny, perhaps you could put some points in here. But I would say generally you don't need this. Because when you're small, you're not gonna have any vassal problems, and this is mainly to stop vassals. So then you don't need it. And when you're really big, thanks to just having gold, having this should be useless. So if you want to claim throne, grab this. Otherwise, I'd say stay away from administrator. Finishing any of these 2 is super fine too. I'm just saying, you don't have to feel forced to finish. Like getting 2 extra domain here and getting the architect, like finishing this one is really powerful. So don't get me wrong saying that the left side is bad. I'm just saying, if there's something else you really want your ruler to do, don't feel bad just getting some points and then skipping out. Alright, just want to get that out of the way. I think this is the best. But let's get over to some other things that are also super strong. So, in here, if you're playing a tribal, I would say Angst is decent. A lot of them are focused on gaining prestige, so while playing a tribal, meaning your soldiers cost prestige, this is pretty decent to go for. But if you're not tribal, I'd say this is almost useless. Never get this. Diplomat, I would say it's a late game pick because of this one. Fabricate claim counter speed is 75% faster. So when you are in the later stages, when you're really powerful and you're basically trying to finish up the map, getting this is insanely good. In the early stages of the game, I would say this is pretty pointless. I would only go in here at like when you're already an emperor and you're just trying to facilitate complete control of the map. Otherwise I would stay out of here as well. And the real kicker in diplomacy is family hierarchy. This is also really powerful for a few reasons. Groom to rule, really, really good. Getting children extra skill points is very nice. That just means that when you die you get characters with a bit more oomph in them. So if you know your ruler's about like gonna die kinda soon and there's nothing else you really want, just going in here and grabbing this before you die, quite nice, because your children will just get some more points for later. But the real kicker in here is obviously the last 2, which is that each friend gives you 2 random skill points and each child gives you 1 random skill point. So what you wanna do if you're going for this, is simply you get the befriend first, and as soon as you get this point, you non-stop befriend scheme. You just go. Every single round befriend. As soon as you got a new friend, you start a new friend scheme and you just go, and you'll get so many points from this. This is the most powerful way to have as many stats as possible. If you do this and you make sure you always succeed your friend schemes, your stats will probably be something around like close to 30 and everything when your ruler is like 40, 50 years old. Very, very solid. The best way to gain stats. The best way to get a, I would say, balanced ruler. That if you go for this, your ruler will be good at everything, which is obviously something you'd want. So I would not really go out of my way for this, but if you have a ruler that is lifestyle focus diplomacy, always family hierarchy. Unless you are tribal ruler, because then Angst I would recommend. In martial, if you are playing as a tribal ruler, oh shit, I haven't even talked about these three. So sorry, we go back here. If I can have one more settlement with the main focus, I'll pick the main focus. Otherwise, always well focused. Duty focus down here is garbage. Never in your life take this. Unless like, I have never selected this because just the bonus is paying 2 stewardship for enemy agents acceptancy and cur guest opinion. Like, sure, if you only need one more to get a more settlement, like, sure, you could grab this one, I guess, but there's not really any reason to grab this over this, because this generates you more gold. And this one obviously generates the most gold if the +3 stewardship doesn't really matter. In here, I would say, if you're playing, again, tribal, always majesty focus. The 1+ in prestige for a tribal ruler is so much, especially early game. If you're playing feudal, you'd probably go for family focus most of the time, but maybe you don't want to have it. If you're trying to keep your lineage tiny, you can obviously just go for the foreign affairs. But then again, I would pick between these two, honestly. I think the 1 prestige is even for a feudal lord is mostly better than the plus. This one I would only pick if I am really big and I don't want children, which is rare to have that occur. So mostly these two. Early game, the prestige probably. More later game, the fertility. So, in martial, as a tribal ruler once again, always authority focus. The 0.3 control growth is insane if you're playing tribal, because as a tribal what you'll be doing is just war, 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 city, 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 and all of them will have 0 control, and this is just what you need. You need this if you're a tribal. If you are feudal or a clan, when I say, I haven't talked too much about clan, but as clan you probably also want authority focus. This is the first time I think clan separates from feudal, because clan and feudal are basically always the same, except for one thing, and that is when you conquer cities. And when you conquer cities as clan too, they will usually have 0 happiness, meaning as clan you want this. But for the other ones, in here and in here, everything I've said about feudal applies to clan. But when it comes to this one, clan definitely wants this one. Feudal might want this one as well early game. It depends on how aggressive you are as feudal. But as feudal, I'd mostly pick chivalry focus. Just to make you and your soldiers powerful. You could go for a strategy focus too, but generally authority focus is mostly better than this. Just the 2 extra martial I would say is not worth the control and the dread. But if you're late game, yeah, you could go strategy focused, but I would stay out of this early game. And most of what I've said has mostly been for early game, because late game you can basically do whatever you want because you're big and you can just run over everyone. But yeah, then as a pick, this one here I will do something that I usually don't do with any other tree, and that is to get all the top ones. Uh, this one gives another 0.3 control growth and 50 natural dread. This is ridiculously good. As we just stated, plus 3 control growth here is really nice, and getting another plus 3 here is maddeningly nice for any tribal. For any tribal, I would get this one. Even if I'm gonna go for maybe Angst, getting this 1 point for tribal, I would say, is almost mandatory to get the control up. Sort of for clan too, but not as important for clan. But yeah, get this trait. This one is also really important for tribal. So playing as tribal, I would mostly recommend to try and get marshals. Like I said, Angst is also good for tribal, but yeah, marshal is where it's at for the tribe. Getting the 50% off on the Casus Belli is really important for tribals. This one isn't as important, but if you yourself are gonna be fighting for tribal, which you probably want when you're playing martial, getting this one to reduce the risk of commanding armies is really important. So, as playing a tribal early game, martial, get all top ones. After that, you can kind of pick whatever you prefer. I usually go overseer when I play tribals, but you can make a case for any of these playing tribals. All of them are good. They all focus on. But I really like to get the absolute control on tribal. So I mostly go full overseer for tribals. I don't think there's any other trait that is like really that insane worth talking too much about on here. Yeah, like absolute control and sever the crown. All the other ones are just sorta nice. Like nothing here is like, yeah. Peacemaker is nice too, like the 10% faster pieces can save your ass sometimes, so... Not to say Peacemaker's bad, but I prefer absolute control. As for feudal, I usually don't go into the martial lifestyle when playing feudal. I don't think it's that valuable, honestly. I would definitely go for overseer if I play feudal and go in here. Or maybe gallants. I would probably not do strategist if I'm feudal. Even though, like, if you're, this is like a, I would say mostly an early game that any of this matters. As soon as if you are an emperor already, going into martial is generally pointless. I'm not gonna lie. Like nothing in here for an emperor is that useful. But in early game, all of this is really nice to have. Then intrigue, I think, is the most interesting and the most... So far I would be like early game mostly tribal, late game or early game tribal, or just any time for this, and then most of the time grab this. So this is like basically must have, early game, and optional. This one is the most interesting one, because this one is the one where I'm like, not sure what to think, honestly. So, when the game was first released, Seducer was really powerful for one simple reason, and that was, at least if you were playing a man. For a woman it wasn't as simple, but for a man, Seducer, when the game first launched, was really powerful, because when the game first launched, this right here, you could get infinite of living members. Now it caps at 100 members of your family, I think. But when the game initially launched, this right here didn't have a cap, so you could be gaining something like 100 renown per turn just for having living members. Meaning, when you went Seducer and you just made your family pop, like, you could make strategies to have like 5,000 family members and just rain down with those stats. And then Seducer was really good, because the way to get many family members is to start early and just your very first character, you'd go like Seducer, you just go ham and have sex with everything that moves, just to get many sons and daughters, so that you could then marry them off and make your family explode quickly. Now they nerfed this, meaning that this is capped. This right here. What the? Come on now, game. There we go. This is capped at 100, meaning 2 points instead of gaining something like 50, 100. So this right here is, yeah, pretty... Going for that strategy now is pretty pointless, doesn't really do anything for you. So I would say right now the Seducer is probably the worst tree in the game. I see no point. There is almost no benefit in this. The only benefit that I can see is like trying to seduce someone higher up on the food chain. Let's say that you are a duke and you seduce like you seduce someone who's a queen or a empress or something like that, and you have a illegitimate bastard with them, but they are a religion that like accepts bastards or like no bastards, and then your child will then have inheritance of their empire, and then you can either, so that you get yourself up the food chain, but you don't even need to be a seducer to do something like that. That's like the only benefit, but I would say Seducer is not good. Just plonking down 1 point in like weeds in a garden can be kind of good if you're really looking to get a specific trait on one child, so you want to pump out some extra children. Just getting like the 1 point in this is quite alright. I would say the other part of the Seducer tree is never, just never do that. Unless you're going for some meme strategies or something like that. But for like actual attempting to win to your best of your ability, just don't. Don't do Seducer. The Schemer is pretty decent. The Kidnapper is very strong. If you can instantly win wars with kidnapping. You can kidnap people with claims and make them like a pretty sneaky thing you can do. So let's, for example, so the Byzantine Empire, it's really big. It can be really hard to nab all this land because it's an empire, so it's hard to take it. But let's say, so this little kid here, he has a claim for everything. So if you have the Kidnapper, you can kidnap this kid. He will go to your jail. The second he turns 16, you can release him into your care by converting him to your religion and then recruiting him to you. This will mean that you will have a guy with a claim for everything. Now, what you would probably be saying now is, what's the point of having that? Because since it's an empire, when you use this claim on it, you won't get the land, because this lad will just take over the crown and be emperor. But here's the thing, you convert his religion to your religion. Meaning, after you give him all the land, you just have to declare war on him, because when he's your religion, you can declare a war of you can declare a subjugation war on him because he's now your religion. You can't always do this, but if you have access to subjugation war, that is, then you can subjugate him, meaning so first you beat whoever rules, make your puppet rule, then you subjugate the puppet, and you get everything. And that's what's really beautiful with the Kidnapper. It's the easiest way, or abduction, it's the easiest way to get huge land masses for cheap. You can do this without the Kidnapper, but the Kidnapper is the most consistent, nice way to do it. So if you're in those middle stages, you know, you're an empire, but there are other powerful empires that you want to steal, going into Schemer, grabbing Abduction Scheme, abducting someone with a claim that's strong, that like the one you're abducting is weak, but they have a strong claim. You then convert them, and then you subjugate. That's really powerful. Apart from this, there isn't a lot in here. If you have someone you want to kill, going for some extra hostile schemes can be nice, but I have usually most this for the kidnapping, conversion, taking strategy. Apart from that, I usually stay out of the Schemer as well. It's far better than the Seducer, because it also has some enemy hostile scheme success chance reduction against me, or like you as a player, meaning it can be good when you're really big and people are starting to try and get rid of you. It can be really nice to go into this one to protect yourself. But mostly the Kidnapper is what's worth talking about in here. And the last in here is the torture. The torture, there are a few good things. The number one thing that's good with torture is that being a torturer is easiest way to become a cannibal. Becoming cannibal has some benefits. I'm gonna talk more about that when we get into the religious stuff. But let's just say, if you want to be a cannibal, pick torturer. It's the easiest way to trigger a cannibal event. There are some other good things. Dark Insight is really nice. It gives you both intrigue, meaning it's harder to kill you and you are better at killing people, and prowess, making you a better fighter. Prowess is nice to get as a tribal leader that's going in here. So let's say that you're playing a tribal leader, you're finished Overseer, but you're not super interested in the Gallant or strategy. Going into Torturer is really nice. Or just as an early game thing, you go in here, you pick the one Torturer point, and then you go in here perhaps. Because this one gives you some nice prowess too, so some more dread gain is kind of relevant. The other big thing is this one. This means you will always be at 100 dread. That being at dread is very positive in this game, just because it makes people afraid of you, which would normally be bad, you'd think, but in this game it's fantastic when people are scared of you, because they're more likely to do what you want, because they don't dare to say otherwise. So getting into Forever Infamous is very nice. It just means you will stay at 100 dread forever. The Imprisoned chance is really nice, especially for throne succession confirmations that I'm gonna talk about later on the best way to get the child that you want, as this suggests. The best way is to use the prison, and having 50% chance to imprison is exceptionally well for that. Otherwise, nothing in here is too good. Like, it gives you some... Here's another thing for, like, for a stress strategy. Combining this with the other stress thing here for a crazy stress strategy can be good, but very difficult for beginner. I would not recommend it for anyone who's not super versed in the how the stress system works and the best way to go about that. And then, so I would say intrigue, not bad. This I would definitely call the situational tree. Like, it can be good, no matter if you're small, big, or medium. This can always be good. But it's something that you want to pick when you have a specific intent in mind, and not something you just want to go into at a whim. Like, you want to have a strategy figured out before you go into intrigue. Like, this is something I really need to do right now, because intrigue gives you the tools to screw the rules a bit, as you may. But not something you would just... If your character... So I would never, for a child, select to be intrigue unless I had this strategy in mind. I would always pick something else over intrigue, unless I have that. Like, for example, the cannibal. If I'm planning on cannibal, I would go torturer. And then learning. I would say learning is the best. Overall, is the best tree to be in. Even though I said the best trait is my domain, I stand by that. But as an overall thing, I think learning is the best. Meaning, I might go a few points in here, but then I would mostly go into learning after. Because learning is just... So all three learning trees are so bloody good. For several reasons. Now, the whole of body, all it does is make your character live longer. And living longer is so good. You don't want your characters to die. Unless they're bad. Like, sometimes you want, sometimes you don't. But when you have a character that you're like, this character is insane, I want them to live. Just grabbing all of this gives them like an extra, I think, about 10 to 15 years of life. Having the healthy and the whole of body is worth about 10 to 15 years of life on a character. The Know Thyself is... It doesn't do a whole lot, but just knowing when you're gonna die from natural causes is incredibly powerful in this game. Early game, not so much, but when you get into like the mid-game section, and late game, of course. This is such a good thing to know. So, know thyself. I sometimes just, even whatever I've been doing, when I'm getting older, just go in medicine focus for some extra health, and just grab this. Just, so good. Shit, I just realized I forgot about these. So, this is for, you need kids. Not that good anymore. I would almost always grab this, because the only difference here is 1 intrigue for 30 dread, and some agent's acceptance. So yeah, if I'm gonna kidnap people, I'm gonna want this for the agent's acceptancy, but I would mostly pick the intimidation focus here for the 30 dread. 30 dread's really nice. So I'd mostly pick the intimidation focus when I'm in here. Oh, we're back here. So yeah, like late game, or not late, like late in your character's life, sorry. If you're late in your character's life, they're like 55, maybe 60 years old. Just like going in here just to get this, really good. Unless there's something other that's like super important to grab. But I really like just going in here, even if I'm not gonna finish here, just getting this to know when I need to get my affairs in order. Incredibly good. The last 2 points, yeah, the 15 years, this is just fantastic. If you have a strong ruler, so like, if I go family hierarchy, then I would probably go whole of body second. I think the best follow-up for family hierarchy is probably whole of body, because then your character will be set, because the thing with this is that your character has lots of stats. So what you want them to do after they have lots of stats is to live long, so then you grab this to give them that extra time to live, so that they can abuse those stats for longer periods of time. Then we have Scholar. Scholar's another thing where I usually grab this. Your wards get additional skills and become your friends. This is obviously a point you wanna have with this. You don't. It's not mandatory to have this, but this just gives you more friends, which obviously just helps you here. This trait I get on most of my rulers, just because it gives, like, I don't know, something like 3 to 5 stats, I think. Something like 3 to 5 stats on any child you educate, which is a lot of stats, and it's just 1 single point. Then you have the scientific. This is really good as well. The 35% culture fascination, for anyone wondering what that is this right here. The amount of speed that you complete this is based on your cultural fascination. Meaning, if you are the culture head, grabbing that 1 point, really strong. Getting these as quickly as possible is so good. These are the most powerful bonuses in the game. I'll talk a bit more about them later, I think. But yeah, getting these as soon as possible is very nice. So, if you are the culture head, getting that is so strong. Then this just gives you 10 learning when you are high devotion. 10 stats is a lot of stats. If you're gonna change the religion, grabbing this is kinda nice. Otherwise, those two aren't that big of a deal. Learn on the job is more stats. So if your rulers, if you finished all of this and your ruler is still alive, getting this for even more stats is lovely. This can help you acquire, be able to hold 1 more city, and just helps you get a bunch of learning to get these done faster. And like I said, getting this done as quickly as possible is really nice. Then we have another one of the best traits in the game is sanctioned loopholes. You can buy, claim, interaction. This is super powerful. This means that you can go. So here we have a duchy. You can go to this guy and click right here. Will be an option for buy claim, and that will give you a claim for his entire duchy. So, for example, if we go here, let's say Wessex here, we have a nice little
4 cities here for Wessex. No one currently has this duchy, but if someone had this duchy, you'd talk with them, you'd pay 500 piety, you'd get a claim for all of this. Meaning, if you have like, let's say 5,000 piety, you can almost buy a claim for all of England for like 5,000 piety. Now you can't buy a claim for a kingdom or for an empire if you already have a kingdom or an empire, but just the fact that you can just go and buy claims for like several duchies, like you buy a duchy here, you buy a duchy there, you buy a duchy there, you buy a duchy there, and all of a sudden you have a claim for half of France for like 2,500 piety. Now that sounds like a lot, but as soon as you're like middle tier strong and can maybe take on something like this, that will be nothing for you, or it will be a bit, but it will be super worth it. So one of the strongest traits to get a bunch of claims fast and just shumple off everything. And the scholar just gives you some neat things with everything. And then finally, theologian. Don't grab this too much, but the one that matters in here is that faith, creation, and reformation cost is half. Now, at least one character that you play will go here to do this. Because creating a new faith is so goddamn bloody important to make your faith as good as possible. Now, you don't have to do this to be strong, but picking the best things in here, I'll go over this as well later, is so good. And it can be, if you pick around a bunch of things here, this can be pretty expensive. I think without reductions, this is usually about a 5,000 piety cost, which is pretty steep, especially if you want to buy some claims too. So, and that is with the profit, I mean. So if you don't have the profit, it's usually about 10,000 in cost, meaning this one, reducing it with 50% is pretty important. Apart from that, nothing in here is like that strong, honestly. But just this point, when you're reforming your faith, you gotta get this point. All the other ones are just... These just give some nice... These two just give some nice piety. So these two help. So if you've like gone down here, I will usually finish it for the piety, but you can just go down there and then grab other things. Then in here, something I haven't talked about yet is what to pick here. I will mostly go for theology focus. Now you might ask why, because this scholarship focus is very nice too. It's 2 more learning and it's development growth, and development growth is worth a lot of money. And the main reason why I will almost always go theology focus in here, at least starting out, is because one of the best ways to get a witch's coven is to be theology focused. And a witch's coven is so strong. You want to always try to get a witch's coven as soon as bloody possible. So if I can, this is mostly for feudal. As a tribal, you're probably gonna have to hold off on this, because I wouldn't recommend being learning as tribal. I would not recommend this for tribal leaders. I think tribal leaders should almost always be martial, or maybe diplomacy. But for clan or feudal, just theology focus, I would almost always start out with, if I can. Because that just gives you a chance to get the event for a Witch's Coven. And Witch's Coven, number 1, it gives you a health boost. I think it's a small health boost, but it's still... But it might be a medium. Smaller medium. We'll look later, I have other saves. But yeah, just getting a health boost, you live longer. So bloody good. It gives you some fertility, so you can have more children. That's not always good. It also gives you a decision event here. For 50 gold, you can hold a Grand Rite. And a Grand Rite gives you a full skill point in one of these. That means that even if you're learning focus, you might get just a random martial points. You can get Serve the Crown, for example, meaning you just get some nice natural dread and control for nothing. Or maybe you get a diplomacy so that you can get groomed to rule without ever setting your foot in diplomacy. Just having your children get extra skill points for nothing, just for paying 50 gold. That's a nice deal. So yeah, getting a Witch's Coven I would recommend you to try and do. So if you ever get an event that says gain a witch secret, pick that event. You want to always have a witch's secret and be a witch if you can choose to. It's beyond strong. And then as soon as you have a witch's secret or a witch, you will get up here in major decisions, it will say form witch's coven. It will tell you what to do. You need 60% of your family to be witches or have a witch secret on you. Or if you have very few family members, you just need 4. Meaning you just wait for 3 of your children to be 16, convert them, done. Form the witch's coven, and you're fucking set to be powerful as dong. And those are the things. So what do I think? I think overall learning is the best. I think the strongest trait is my domain. And I would almost always, if I can, be stewardship or learning focused for your education. I would say mostly the best thing to be in your education is to be stewardship for one simple reason. It's that there are 4 tiers of this. My current character is tier number 2. That gives him +4 in a stat. If you get to tier 4, you get +8. +8 means almost 2 more holdings just for being good at that. 2 holdings is so bloody good. I try and keep avoiding saying bloody strong or overpowered or whatever, but it's 2 holdings is worth so much. So if I can, I will almost always go for econ focused just to get those extra holdings. Because the most important thing, pretty quickly in this game to have, is gold. It doesn't really matter what you have of other things. As long as you have gold, you kind of sort of can't lose. And a lot of things I'll talk about later will harken back to this. But yeah, those are the 4 lifestyle choices. Oh, 4. The 5 lifestyle choices and what I recommend. Now, if my child gets rowdy. Rowdy is when they are good at either martial or intrigue. That's what I like the least, because unless I am a tribal leader, then I'll just go martial, of course. But otherwise, these 2 for feudal I think are the worst. I will probably go for the martial one, because then my child will at least have more men to fight. But I will usually avoid rowdy children if I can. That's an option for me. But yeah, and if they're not, you can always pick one of the other 3 as your main focus. But yeah, if you can pick stewardship, pick it. You don't have to get that many points in stewardship if you don't want to. Like, you can, but just make sure that they are stewardship, just so they get more of the stewardship stat. And this is once again mostly for the feudal. So, now we're gone over this. Let's go over religions as well. In here, that's not that important. Let's go over religions. So, when you're creating a new faith, what do you want to create for a new faith? The best thing in here is equality. You're picking equal is by far the best, because then if your view on gender is equal, you can pick whatever child that has the best traits, and that's always what you want. You want the child with the best traits to rule. Because even after you have selected equal, that doesn't mean that all your children will inherit, because after that you can go into succession, and in here there is male only, male preference, equal, female preference, and female only. If you pick equal, it will start here, and it will make it so you can't pick male only and you can't pick female only. But you can pick male preference and female preference, meaning if you are on equal, whatever child you want to pick to like take over from you, you select that preference for that time, and then you just exclude all the other ones
So then you basically have best of both worlds, because that means if you have a daughter that has insane traits, you pick female preference and you make sure she rules. If you have a son with insane, you pick male preference and make sure he rules. This means that you're never locked out of being able to have any child that you want rule. So equality, you know, we're preaching equality right here. Equality is the best for you in any situation here. Now, in here I usually go for fundamentalist for one simple reason, and that is because if you are fundamentalist, you can revoke the line right here. Can revoke landed titles from hostile and evil infidel without incurring tyranny. Gaining tyranny is bad for the most part, so being able to, that means that, let's say I am a Christian and I conquer the Fatimid Empire and all of them are Muslims. That means they won't like me because my religion is hostile or evil to them. So they will probably revolt against me. That means as soon as my revolt, I've beaten down the revolt, they are in jail and I can take all of their land away from them without tyranny and then give it to Christians who will then Christify the empire. Alternative, I can convert them as well, but just the fact that I can choose which one makes fundamentalist basically always the best option, because being fundamentalist means you're punishing people who is not your religion, which means it's the easiest to make everyone in your empire your religion, because they will be scared that they get screwed over by you if you're not following your example. So I would always pick fundamentalist if I have the option to. In here, lay clay is the best, and no, wait, sorry, right? Yeah, lay clay is the best. That means that you control temple holdings. This is really important for a lot of the best cities in the game are holdings of the church. For example, down here we have a really insane holding right here. This is a church holding, a temple holding, and it has this insane mining settlement for giving you 3 gold per turn. You can see, starting out for me, I'm only gaining 1.9 gold, but just holding this temple, just this building, gives you 3 gold. That's more than my entire city that I started with is making on just one building, and this building can be upgraded to the maximum, I think, of 9 gold per turn. This is an insane building. Granted, it's not many places, it's only in this one place, but still, this temple holding, you can't own this building unless you have that. There are others like this. There is also over here, Jerusalem, there is one here, the Mosque of Nablus. It hasn't been built yet, but here you can build a cathedral building. This is also a temple holding, so unless you're the lay clay, you cannot hold this one. This is, I think, is also giving you 3 gold and some other nice bonuses. And there are a few other settlements as well that are like this. I can't remember off the top of my head where they are, but there are a few other ones. I think here, yeah, this one here. Here is another one. The Vaticano here. You can get the Vaticano church. And there are a few others, but if you are not of the, what did I say, the lay clay? Yeah, if you're not lay clay, you can't control these settlements, and you lose out on very powerful bonuses. So lay clay, definitely. Head of faith, you want to be temporal, if you can. Now, I can't right now select it because of some other things, but you want to uncheck, so right now it's spiritual something, it's down here, I think. Yeah. There we go, temporal. So what temporal does is basically when you call a holy war, you get the territory. Because you're the head of faith. Meaning people worship you. And obviously in this game you want people to worship you. So you want to be a temporal head of faith. Then for marriage, I think all 3 options are good. I would say polygamous. I would say overall this is the best option. It gives you the best of both worlds, essentially. It gives you, so you can have one wife with stats, one wife with traits, one wife for alliance, and one wife for the hell of it. I don't know. This gives you 4 wives, and that means that you can pick and choose wives for different reasons. If you are in a ditch effort and you're struggling hard, you can have 4 wives that are all married to you just for alliance purposes, giving you a lot of edge in warfare, for example. Maybe you're a big emperor, you need wives with huge stats. You can have one wife that's technically kind of bad, but she has insane stats, which reflects over to you. Monogamous is really strong early game. Polygamous too for the alliance things, but this gives you nice gold early game, when gold is pretty hard to come by. So for early game, I think polygamous is really nice. I think concords and concubines is the worst one. It's basically just polygamous, but slightly worse. There is one benefit with this that is not for the 4 wives, and that is that you can... This is the only... Consort and concubines is the only way to marry someone who's already married in a monogamous relationship. Meaning, if someone is monogamous and you kidnap them and put them in your court, you can forcefully marry them as a consort or concubine. This you can't do with polygamous or monogamous. This is a very niche thing and has very rare value, but there is value to this. I'm not gonna go too much into it. I'm just gonna, as a staple explanation, say these 2 are the best, but if you are clever about it, you can use consort and concubines for some sneaky strategies. But here's basically, do you want statistic wives, or do you just want some money? Is basically the difference of these 2. Divorce obviously won't always allowed, like there is no benefit in having disallowed or must be approved, you just want it to always be allowed to divorce. Your wives will basically never divorce you unless you piss them off insanely, and you rarely will, so... And even if they divorce you, you can find someone else, so you always want to allow it because you want to be able to get rid of them when you don't want them anymore. But they will basically never get rid of you, so there is, yeah, just always have it on. You mostly want no bastards. There can be... Unless you screw up in your gameplay, you will never have a bastard that you don't want. So just no bastards just makes it so... I mean, you can go for legitimization, you know, then it will cost you some extra if there is a bastard you really want, but this does protect you from making stupid mistakes. But I mostly go no bastards. Because you shouldn't have a bastard that you don't want. Because then you've been sticking your dong in the cookie jar in the wrong way. You want unrestricted marriage. When you get to late game, inbreeding is beyond broken in this game. Don't ask me why they made it so, but yeah, inbreeding is... It sounds like it's bad. Trust me, it's really good. The developers drop the ball when it comes to inbreeding. So you want unrestricted marriage to make sure you can marry your sisters and your brothers, because that is way too powerful. Don't do it in real life though, just in the game. Same-sex relationship really doesn't matter. There is no benefit to do this unless you're doing it for role-playing purposes, so you can pick whatever you want. I usually just accept it, but this one doesn't matter. There is no benefit to be in a homosexual relationship in this game. So, like, I have never been in one in this game. The AI has never asked me to, and since homosexual relationships can't produce children, there is no benefit, so just do whatever you want. Deviancy, I mean, I usually accept it, just in case one of my characters becomes deviant somehow. I usually accept both adulteries. You don't have to do this. I usually do it just in case. I usually accept kinslaying for a simple reason. We're gonna go over a bit more later, but you want to be able to kill your kids without everyone hating you, so I accept kinslaying. And witchcraft, accept. We talked about this. A witch's coven is broken as balls, and you want everyone to know that you're a witch and accept you as a witch. So always accept witchcraft.
Now in here you want equality once again. That just gives you more options for your In here you want temporal, revocable, because you want to be able to appoint your own priest, and you want to be able to remove them whenever you want. This just gives you more control, and more control is good. You want to allow them to get married. It's kind of irrelevant, but you might as well allow them to get married. That just gives you slightly more options. And that's kind of a lot of these are about options for you as a player. A lot of these are mostly to limit what you as a player can do, and you as a player want to be able to do as much as humanly possible. And then finally in here, this one honestly doesn't matter too much. Pick whatever one you want. I usually go for the control growth just to make sure my cities hold high control, but honestly, in here, pick whatever you want. This one is pretty irrelevant. And now finally for the tenants. Most of the tenants are pretty bad, actually. But there are a few of these that are incredibly powerful. This one, whatever. Armored Pilgrimage. This one is close to mandatory for any ruler that wants to go big. It gives you faith reduction on holy wars. Fantastic. If a head of faith exists, and remember, we selected temporal, you, the player, you're the head of faith. So, this means that you can create a holy war for wherever you want. Of course you want that! So, I would pick this one. This gives you an option to invade any kingdom on the map and take it for yourself, as long as you can win the war. Of course you want this. This is almost... You don't have to pick this one, but I would say this is almost a mandatory tenant. This one is sort of whatever. This one is straight up shit. If this one wasn't random, if the Divine the Stars was an option select instead of random, I would call this one okay. But it's not, so I would say this one is garbage. This one is pretty good if you're trying to make a big if you're trying to make a big family mandatory, because it gives 25 fertility. But since they nerfed big families, no longer that good. It makes lustful a virtue, and lustful is a pretty decent trait, so... Yeah. Why not? It's an okay one. Not super mandatory. This one is really whatever. Indulgence. This one is really good if you're not the head of faith yourself. Basically, this is good for Christians, for Catholics baseline, because the Pope gets a lot of money. If you're not Christian, never pick this one. This one right here. This one, when you look at this one on the surface, this one is terrible. But no, this one is actually super good. It might be a beginner trap to read this one and be like, wow, why would you want that? But being able to decide when you die is so good. I pick this one most of the time. Also, short reign duration is 50% less. It's just nice too. But the icing here is you can select to die. Committing suicide is really good in this game, for the simple reason that if you have a shitty ruler that you don't want to be, you can just, boom, done. You're not a shitty ruler anymore. Sure, you can't commit suicide whenever you want. You need to be over 60 or have some serious health conditions. But just being able to get rid of shitty rulers as soon as humanly possible, fantastic. I would, for the most part, select this one. If you don't want that, it's not a big deal. You don't have to pick this one. I just find this one to be fantastic, because being able to control who your ruler is more control for a player. The more control you have, the more powerful you will mostly become. So I like to have this one as well. Let's move on. So we have Divine Marriage. It's alright, you gain some piety. So if you're trying to go for huge... this one, I would only pick this if I'm a monogamous, because it's only good for monogamous. But if you're monogamous and you're marrying your sister or whatever, you get a lot of piety, which you can use for claims. So, it's pretty decent, but nothing I would generally select because there are better options. This one is whatever. This one, on the surface, doesn't look that good. But this one is actually really strong for one simple reason, and the game doesn't tell you this. But this one is a tricky one. So, what this one does is children with learned focus may gain the wise man trait if you do well in their studies. What the game doesn't tell you about this one is not only can they gain the wise man trait if they do well in their studies, they can gain the wise man trait from pilgrimage. It's not stated on it. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a bug or if the developers are just silly. But what this one also does is your ruler has a chance to gain wise man from pilgrimage, and wise man is a super good trait. On the surface, it's not that good. You read it, it just says one learning. Well, one learning, yeah, it's not bad, but it's not great. But wise man has one more property that also is not stated in wise man. If you are a wise man, you can hold a mystical communion. Mystical communion gives you 300 lifestyle experience. 300 experience, it's 1000 for a level, so 3 mystical communions is almost an entire level. And experience and level ups are really nice. So just being able to go on one pilgrimage, as long as you gain the wise man or wise woman trait, you can then hold mystical communions and gain a bunch of experience for almost free. So yeah, this one, it doesn't say on it, you'll be tricked and skim over this one, but this one is bloody powerful just because you can get the wise man trait. So it's easy to get tricked that this is bad, but this is really good. Not mandatory by any stretch of the imagination, but definitely a contender for really good traits. Then it's some more of this, pretty useless. Hosting a feast earns piety. If you're playing a cannibal playthrough, I would say this is good. Being a gluttonous cannibal can be kind of nice. So, if you're going for a cannibal religion, consider picking this one up. Otherwise, I'd say skim over it. All the syncretisms are pretty useless. I generally would not recommend them. I don't think this is too good either. Like, no. Wouldn't recommend either. No. This one can be sort of good to, like, control your children by making them monks, but not that good. This one is really whatever. It helps you not get too much stress, but yeah, not much to... Yeah, none of these are all that good. Pursuit for Power, on the other hand. Here we have something that's also bonkers good. I don't know what they were thinking when they made this one. I think this is arguably the best one. I have no, like, I don't know what the developers were thinking. This is just so good. So first of all, you get an invasion casus belli once per lifetime. This is a kingdom invasion casus belli. It doesn't tell you that, but this means you get a free war for an entire kingdom once per lifetime. That's nice. But that's not all. So not all, you get a free kingdom per lifetime. You also get 50% less tyranny gain. And let me tell you, gaining tyranny is something, if you play this game right, you will be gaining a bunch of tyranny. And having tyranny is strictly shit. So gaining 50% less of it is insanely fucking strong. Now 50% less title creation, not the biggest deal, but it's still really nice. And the only thing that's bad about all of this is that vassals have 10% less opinion of you. Now this is, granted, 10% less opinion of vassals isn't something you'd want, but when you gain 50% less tyranny, you're gonna re-get that by just having less tyranny anyway. So this one is just so good, I would almost always pick this one for one of my options. Like, this one isn't terrible, but nothing insane. Here we have the cannibal trait. This one, if you're gonna try to be a cannibal as much as possible, you obviously pick this one. This means that cannibalism is not a crime, meaning people won't hate you for being a cannibal, and you can be an open cannibal. And it even makes people like you for being a cannibal, and gives you a bunch of piety. So, if you're gonna be a cannibal, obviously pick this one, otherwise don't. This one is kind of nice if you struggle with having vassals hating you, but not something I would generally pick. If you're going for a lot of kidnapping shenanigans that I talked about earlier, this one can be pretty nice, but not something I'd pick for most playthroughs. This one makes building cost more. This is shit. Sure, it makes you better at fighting, but come on, buildings cost more? No. We don't want any of that. This one is mediocre at best. Like, mediocre at best. This one is kind of nice, but it's just so much worse than everything else. And this one is as well. So yeah, I would honestly say there are basically 4 things that are good. It's consolism, armed pilgrimage, pursuit for power, and esotericism. Esoterism? I have no clue how the fuck to say that. Those 4 are by far the 4 best tenets, I would say. There are others you can mix in there, like the cannibalism, like your divine marriages, and a few others. But generally, I would go for a combination of these 4. Not all faiths can pick this one. For example, I think all faiths can pick these 2. I could be wrong about that. No, probably not all of them. But any combination of these 4 is a stellar 10 out of 10 success. And there you have it. There's your religion. Now you can mix and match a few other things. Maybe you don't want men to ever rule. Sure, then you can go for female dominated, for example. Or maybe you don't want to be head of faith. Then don't be it. This is just what I would recommend to be the most stellar way to succeed most of the time. Oof. That's a handful of... Ugh, my throat is getting all dry. I'm gonna need a really quick drink break, just clear the throat. I've been speaking for an hour plus straight. Ah, there we are. I needed that. Alright, so now we covered religion, we covered the lifestyle choices. Now. And we haven't even started playing yet. We'll get into that later. So, one other thing you could cover are the traits, but honestly, I feel like all traits are sort of good. It really depends what you're trying to accomplish. Honestly, I guess what I really should just say is trying to pick traits that are virtuous for your religion, really important. Like, you should try to pick virtues if you can. And then there are a few traits I would avoid. I can't really get a full list of them, I don't think. But let's try and find someone with the few traits that I would consider awful. No one's... Here's one. Shy. Now, shy is only bad for one reason, and it's not stated on the trait, because there are some things that these traits do that are not stated on the trait. And what shy does is basically any time you're trying to interact with other characters, you'll gain stress.
gaining stress is mostly bad unless you're going for a stress strategy, meaning that being shy is really hard to play as a ruler because you'll probably be stressed a lot. So I would recommend you to not pick shy, not because of anything that says on the trait, but simply because it's really hard to not get stressed as a shy character. So I generally never give a character shy unless the game sort of forces it on me. There's one or two more traits I would not recommend. Let's see if we can. Otherwise, I think obviously lazy is a awful trait. It gives you -5 just for some stress loss. Don't pick lazy. Lazy is a shitty trait. It makes it easy for you to not be stressed. But yeah, don't pick lazy. Unless once again you're forced into it. And then finally, generous. I would never pick generous. Because, like I said, the most important thing in this game, I would say, is gold. And generous gives you -10% in gold. You don't want that. There are also a few other benefits, or downsides with generous, where it will gain you a bunch of stress if you do ungenerous things, and you might not want to be generous all the time, so yeah, I would not recommend you be generous. I'd say that's it's not good. I also think gluttonous is pretty bad unless you're doing some cannibal shenanigans maybe, because as I said, I feel like stewardship is by far the best stat to go for. And giving minus stewardship is obviously not something you'd ever wanna do. So, yeah, getting gluttonous. I don't know why gluttonous gives minus stewardship, but yeah, I'd strongly advise against that. Apart from that, I would say grab whatever traits you want. I would just generally stay away from those traits. I think the best trait is virtuous. Let's see if we can find someone who's here. No, sorry, not virtuous. Sorry, temperate. This is the best trait because it gives you the two best things, in my opinion, anyway. Stewardship +2, amazing. Stewardship, like I said, in my opinion, best stat. Secondly, it gives even a health boost, and again, living longer is good. It's also, for a lot of religions, a virtue. It's not a virtue for all religions, but for some of the Christians anyway, this is a virtue as well. And if it's a virtue, by far the best pick. So yeah. I'm not gonna go over the traits that much more, but yeah, those are my opinions of the best traits, worst traits. You can choose on your characters. What would I get? Trusting, impatient, and arbitrary. Arbitrary, I'm not a huge fan of for this minus stewardship. However, the difference between stress loss and stress gain. Having minus stress gain is way better than having minus stress loss. So this trait, even though it has -2 stewardship, I think is pretty good. Because the -50% stress gain is really nice. So this is a bit of an outlier. I still don't think it's amazing, but just the fact that there's gives you the minus stress gain instead of... If it's stress loss, it's far worse than minus stress gain. Impatient is really good for tribal leaders, the prestige. And trusting is just... It makes people like you, which is nice. It's just easier to kill you as well, so it can be a bit scary to be a trusting character. Anyway. So, we've gone over the stats and the traits and the majiggers. I could go over this too, I guess, sort of fast-ish. Generally, every age. What I try to get is the men of arms size. And the 3 building ones. The battlements, your burrs, and your manoralism. And it's the same one here. It's the men at arms, the hoarding, castle, baileys, windmills, and standing armies, Machinist, Royal Armory, Cranes. And in here it's moats. Crop rotation, barracks, and mustering grounds. Now there are a few outliers that I think are extra spicy. It's Divine Right is one of the best things and something I usually go early. Divine Right makes it so you can press several claims in a single war. Now this is incredibly powerful, and it also makes it cheaper to create titles and you name it. But yeah, the press several claims at once is the important part. So yeah, Divine Right is extremely powerful and something I would go out of my way for. Down here you have some extra bonuses you can only get in certain situations. They are not... if you can get these can be super powerful in some situations. Obviously these are also really good, sorry. All of the ones that gives +1 domain limit are also really powerful. Like, all the things in here are good. So it depends a bit on what you're doing right now. Like, for example, if you're trying to get a university finished, you wanna get the development increase. So yeah, it depends. But yeah, you wanna get your buildings running as soon as you can, mostly, and your armies going. But these aren't as important in what order you do them. Do them in what order feels natural. It's just stuff like this. Monthly Prestige 5 and Partition Law, this is garbage. Like, get this last. Horseshoe, these 10% movement speed is surprisingly more important than you'd think, but still not something I would rush. Like, this one is where congenial rights and development growth, like, not bad, not something I would rush either. This one is shit. The 25% naval, the 10% movement speed is way more important than the 25% naval speed. This is probably the worst trait. Get this last if you are able to choose. But yeah, I'm not gonna go over these too much because they're pretty self-explanatory. Another one that's really, really strong is rightful ownership. And this one, because getting the primogenitor... God, why are these words so hard? Primogenitor? I have no clue. This, right here, is also really strong. And you want to get this as soon as you can, pretty much. So, now we've gone over pretty much how I think you should play the game. Now let's look at, like, actually playing the game. After a pretty long wait. So, looking at feudals. So, right now as a feudal, I am not allowed to declare war on anyone. Because I don't have any casus belli. If you're playing non-feudals, meaning clan or tribal, you can declare war on basically anyone you want. But as a feudal is where it's trickiest, which is the hardest to play early game. So what do you actually want to do? You start a game. So, first of all, we want to select this. So, we've just been thrusted into the game. We're a 52-year-old who has already put a bunch of points in here. What would you want to continue with this guy? There's two things that I would say you can go for here. You can either go for stewardship and try to get my domain, but then we need to get a duchy. Or alternatively, we go theology focus to go for the Witch's Coven. And since he's already pretty good at this and has a bunch of points in here, I would say that you should pick theology focus as your starting point for this character when you've just started out the game right here. So I would recommend theology focus and try and getting that Witch's Coven rolling with him as your starting thing. He can go for Vow of Poverty. Poverty? Would not recommend doing that. Sometimes this could be good. I would not say this start here, because what we want is to get money as quickly as possible. So, secondly, let's look at his family. He has a wife and 2 children. He could have 3 secondary spouses. So, before we even start the timer, what do we want to do? Now, there's a few things we want to do. Number 1, we want a stewardship wife. So let's check through here and we can see there are 4 wives that have 10 stewardship.
Out of those, this one is the most promising one because she has 25 learning as well, making her the most overall balanced one. So I would probably... Now I know she has low for children, but that's fine. We already have 2 children, so we don't have to look too much for it. So I would get this wife, because this one isn't better. No, this one only has 8. So I would get this wife as a stewardship wife. So we'll send out 1 for her. Then I would look for alliances and see is there any wife I can get an alliance with. And there are 2. These are the only alliances we can acquire, but that's another 300 men that we can call in. And it's this land, and that's not the first land I would probably go for here. So we should all find a war target. And if we look, we are in this duchy. So what we want to do is grab Dublin 8 as soon as possible, and maybe these 2 here. So this guy is weak, so this guy is an acceptable one to get an alliance with, so we should probably, like we saw here, we could marry his daughter for an alliance. We'll probably get this as my alliance wife. And then finally we want a wife, oh shit, whoops, we want a wife with traits, so we'll go in traits, we go inheritable, and we'll find out there are 0 wives with inheritable traits. Well, or at least good. This is a inheritable trait, but this is considered a bad trait, so that one is not available. So there's actually no wives that has any traits we want. And because of that, I would probably leave the last wife slot open, in case we can find a better one later. The same goes for my 2 children. I will probably... He actually has a son somehow. Okay, interesting. I would probably not get them any wives, unless there's another alliance. Oh, never mind. This guy can have an alliance wife. Oh, this is a strong alliance. Wait. Oh, it's because I'm old. I couldn't get a good alliance. Alright. So this son can get a solid alliance wife, actually. So we'll look at the alliances. This one is by far the strongest alliance. Where is he? He's down in France. But he's really strong, so we definitely want that one. So we'll look at our sons, and we could confirm that this son is the second one. So we'll go for the alliance. We're gonna grab this alliance wife for him. These sons are probably not sons that I would want to rule, so I'm probably... Oh, this one can actually get traits as well. This is 600 and a trait wife, so hold on, let's have a look at inheritables. So, for my main son, my first son here, there's an 18 stewardship, 21-year-old genus wife option. We just got ourselves a nice alliance, meaning we can go for a trait wife for this guy here. And this is a fantastic trait wife. She's main focus here, giving her this. This is a fantastic trait wife option. I would definitely select this one as a starting point for him. So we'll send out that proposal. And then we even have a grandson. I don't know if he can get alliances. He cannot. So we're not gonna give him anything because he's 1. Alright. That's something that I would do right off the bat. Now looking in here, there's nothing that we want to do in here, and there is only the elves who can get married, which is fine. So, after that, you wanna... I usually crank up game speed to 5 when I go through the motions, but you definitely don't have to, so we'll... After all that, we're ready to finally start playing the game. So, we'll crank up the speed, waiting for all the marriages to pop through. Here we go. So now we have 2 solid allies. So what you want to do now is pretty much abuse these allies right away to grab land. So what you would want is, you'd want Dublin and these 2 here. So what you can do right off the bat is, you have 1 strong ally in this one. So you can easily take Dublin to create your duchy pretty quickly. So you would want to get this going with your priest. And then the wife that we selected to be the best is this one. She had 10 stewardship and the 25 learning, so we're gonna want to make her our primary spouse, because she will give us the most amount of stats possible. So we're getting slightly more gold thanks to her. So yeah, there is no fourth wife that we can acquire, but that's quite alright. So, right now, there's honestly not a lot we can do, because we can't declare war on anyone. We have set up the wife situation, so one thing I would kind of recommend, at least if you want children, is to look at them and be like, which one is most likely to produce children? And the answer is, this one is chase, so not. So the one that's most likely to produce children is this one, right here. If we had one with traits, we would select that one. But what you then want to do is go in here and you'd go for a seduction scheme. You can check, it's 75, okay, pretty likely, and we can go in romance, it's 55. So the seduction is more likely, it usually is, but not always. And we'd start a seduction scheme. Now, the main reason we want to do that to our wife is because when seduction schemes end, you will always have sex if you succeed on the seduction scheme, and every time you have sex, obviously you have a chance to produce children. So even though it doesn't increase the chances too much, unless you're trying to sway or do something else, if you have no other scheme to go for a seduction scheme on your wife or your husband to if you want children, to just increase the odds of getting more children, and we do want some more children. So that's what we're gonna do. But now, there's not a lot we can do. We're gonna have to wait for this county to get popped before we can really do much else. So then I would just start flipping the days and waiting for this to kind of occur. So, here are some options. We can gain 15 gold. We can gain 75 gold, 20 dread, and minus 15 happiness in this city. This is very early game. We're only gaining 2 gold per month. Gaining 75 gold in one swoop is so much money that this is probably what we're picking. We're gonna look at the last one too, and the last one is some more development growth. It's so early, 75 gold is infinite money for us. We're gonna pick this one. When you're later in the game, gaining minus 50 on a place is not worth it. This early on though, this is really worth it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pause the game. We're gonna select this, getting up to 100 gold. Now this place has lost some happiness because we did this option. So you wanna get in there and tell him to get the happiness back. It will take a while. We are now only gaining 1 gold, but this still generated us more gold than the 15, because the difference would be 60 gold, and this is generated us 1 less gold per month for 5 years. So in theory, if you do the math, that would actually be minus 6. That would actually make it exactly the same amount of money. However, the better martial you have, the faster you can regain the happiness here, and you won't be gaining that much minus over the entire duration, because the gold will go up as the control goes up, meaning we probably only lost about 30 to 40 gold by going the minus, but we gained 60, meaning we probably gained about 20 gold for that selected option over the other options. So now that we have 100 gold, we can build a building here if we want to. Since we have pretty strong allies, I would probably go for the wet farmlands just to get a bit more gold running. That's probably the building I would select. It also means we can get the building faster, which will then regenerate the gold as well. So the fact that we got the money right away as well is also another benefit. Now this is one of these ones. I'm actually not fully sure how all of these ones works, but they have something to do with their traits, with the options. So always close. So you'll have to read and try and figure this out. So let's say silver rockets always close to the heart would certainly be unusual, and at the garden. I'm not actually sure about these ones. They can be a bit random, but sometimes, let's say that she's
let's say she's like, she's arrogant. You can see, for example. So if one of these traits were referring to arrogance, that would be like the obvious pick. I'm not super sure which one of these she would actually like. She's arrogant, so she probably doesn't want the thing that's close to her heart. So she'd probably want this one, I would imagine. Would you look at that? She's arrogant, so she didn't like the other one, so she did like this one. But yeah, I'm not fully certain always, but it has something to do with the traits, with what they like there. So, we have a challenge to either make my wife be my friend, get some learning, and this holding gets temperate grounds. That's definitely something that you would want, I would think. Because you get some experience. Now, 15 gold is kind of nice early game. I would say you can probably pick whatever one you prefer here. 15 gold isn't that much. So, I mean, it's still a fair bit, but, like, when it's 100%, I would probably pick this one, because it gives some experience and it just kickstarts you to get going. Because, yeah, as you can see, this leveled it up from the shrine to the temple grounds, meaning we're actually getting 0.1 more gold, and that is a cost of something like 3 or 100 gold or something like that. So, I would say that is a worthy investment to go for that when it's a guaranteed option. This one has to do with traits and stats, I think. So, she's best at intrigue, which means I'm pretty sure she likes riddle poems, because she likes to be clever about it. So, high intrigue, I think this one, riddle poems. Exactly, we succeeded. So you have to look at stats and try and like figure out, you know, what they'd like. Can be a little tricky. I don't always succeed in these, but I feel like I have most of them pretty down. We had 95% success rate and we failed. Well, that's disappointing. Happens. We have a child though. Name, you just pick whatever you want. You can name them something funny if you'd like. Managed to have 2 children. We'll just go for some random names. Now, one problem that's gonna happen now is that when this finishes, we're gonna be missing some gold. Because we went for a building. Now, I don't think early game that's a big deal, honestly. On this one, I'll probably look at her. She's pretty bad, not gonna lie. Like, doesn't honestly matter too much to me. I'd probably go for like, as long as they don't. She's a schemer though. Like, they can be scary, but I generally just tell them to become my religion and join me. Like, whatever. It generally doesn't hurt to have them too much. So we'll let the time go by, and now we'll have our claim. Now, yes, this will put us in big red, which is generally not what you want, because we started building the building. So what you can do is go in here and actually cancel the building, if it wasn't blocking. So what you can do is actually, you can just cancel the construction here to get the money back to, honestly, you should probably do that. So we'll cancel the building, and then we'll accept this. Now we have a claim for Dublin. Now we can check. Dublin actually has managed to get some pretty solid friends too. And what's really important here, you gotta make sure that your friends aren't in a war. If this guy is in a war, he won't come and help you. Now, this guy is stronger than all of this one's friends combined. Meaning, we should have a pretty easy win against this guy. But as long as you check that your ally is not at war.
hoping I'm right, because this guy is stronger than me, but we're gonna give this a go, because I'm pretty confident that we can win this. So, go in here, we'll check on our ally. This is a strong guy, he has 2,000 units, we'll call him to war. It does have a cost though, so you gotta check, be careful about the cost. We could call this guy too. We probably don't need to call him, but I would say it's safe. It makes it a bit safer to call him in, so I'm probably gonna call him in as well. And then we're not gonna... Now, these ones have more soldiers than us. We don't want to spawn our soldiers, because that will just put it in a bad spot. So we're just gonna click play. Now, he will spawn his over here, but we can't really do anything. So all that we need is for this guy to get his soldiers over here ASAP, and then we can spawn our soldiers. What we gotta hope is that this guy doesn't screw us over, but he will go here, meaning if our allies don't arrive in time, we can spawn in here and then try to bait him away. But we're right now just gonna hope that our allies just comes in and wins this battle for us. And this is how you succeed early game. You make sure you have better allies than your opponent. So these ones have 2,300 men. My team decided to inter a little bit, but it's alright, because they have 1,900 and they have 2,300. So these lads right here, now they are sieging here, and they're gonna get this first. But it's okay, because this is why we didn't spawn our units in first, because now that we spawn our units in, our ally will come running to us. So we spawn in here, and now you will see instantly the ally will run over to us. So now we wait for all of them to be here, and now we have way more. Now we go here. So we check, we make sure our ally is following us, and then we can start chasing after. And then we can start moving in. Should be careful though, since we have very little units, we want to make sure that our allies are with us. So we follow them in there, and now we're getting a easy win. But we'll check here first. So this one might be an event that confuses some people. The thing with this event is you want to pick something that your religion thinks is virtuous. So we'll check our virtues. We have chaste, so chastity is moderation. Moderation is modest. And compassion. So these are actually all... Because sometimes it's not. So let's have another look what he says. Often quotes passages from about the holy virtues. I would prove I have paid attention by quoting a passage of my own, one which complements his personality, alright? Well, he is vengeful, so he's not compassionate. He's deceitful, so I would probably say that he is chastity? Some of these you have to be a bit of a detective on. Yeah, we got it, so yeah. Because he was vengeful, that means that he was not some of the other traits, and we picked the right one. So now, our allies, we got this down, so now... But we're gonna have to be careful, because this guy's gonna go in here, and he might actually get this before we can get this. So we're gonna have to tell our teammates to follow us over here, and we're gonna have to fight them some more until we can grab this city. So we're gonna chase them down a little bit more, because they are not staying away from our city, so there will have to be some chasing going on here. The teammates are following, so we're getting in there. I would probably not send for a position early game, even though you kinda want your men to stick around. We got a perk. Probably go in here for some extra learning. And now we can tell our men. They don't have enough men to siege here. Now they do. This could be a bit sketchy though. So now you gotta keep an eye here. So they need 220, we need 210. So hopefully we will get this first, but we might have to leave, so you have to keep an eye on the numbers as they progress. If they are getting it first, we're gonna have to leave. Oh, this is close. This is so close. So this is one of the most painful things. We are probably getting it first, but it's not guaranteed. If they get it first, we lose this war. So, if you want to play it safe, you should probably just run over there and keep on killing them a bit more. I will, for the sake of this, though, probably gamble a little bit. Now we're at 100 left. They're gonna get it first, I think. 60, 50. They're gonna get it first, so we're gonna have to... So there is one thing that you can... It's early game, you could just gamble here. Because the AI doesn't always instantly click this. But what we should do is just run over here and tell them to fuck off. This is a sad reality that sometimes wars early game can be a bit annoying. We captured their leader, so we won there anyway. So we'll obviously enforce our demands. And now we have a secondary settlement. So, we now have access to the duchy. You can see that this one is a Norwegian Catholic, so obviously we're gonna... There are a few things you can choose now. You want to convert this, but at the same time, you sort of... The benefit of what we just did though now is that this city was never taken, so the control is at 100. I'm gonna tell this guy to keep on doing that again. So there is, I would say, two options right now. You could consolidate this city for some bonus strength, or you can just start fabricating another claim for another duchy. You can check what buildings they have in the different settlements around and see what would be a good city to go for. Now, one thing you can see is that this is a holy site city. This is a very valuable city to hold. And this guy is holding 3 domains. He's gonna be pretty scary. So we should definitely wait with him. All the other ones are fairly weak, so we aren't that scared of most other players so far. The most valuable city in terms of gold is this city. So I would probably go for this city. Getting some nice gold income early on is really nice. So I would recommend that. So we'll tell him to go for a claim on this bad boy. And we'll just keep on flipping some time. We still have some decent prestige, and what we can do, if we need, is to call for a hunt and get some more prestige. You should also now and then make sure you check your alliance so they didn't break for some reason. But now we have, thanks to getting Dublin up to 1,000 men, meaning we're pretty powerful. Like, this guy has 300 men. We don't even need allies to grab this settlement. And we're up to gaining 3 golds per turn now. You should always check here now and again. It says I can create a duchy. I do. But right now I want to get some more land before I can hold 5 cities as of right now. Another sun. So, one other thing that you should check for sure is this stewardship skill. Every 5 gives you 1 settlement. So right now I'm at 6, so to get 1 more settlement I need 10. That's a bit of a leap. We got another point. We could go for learned on the job, but I would honestly say this guy is 58, he's sort of old. I would recommend going into Know Thyself, at least, to make sure that he is... to make sure that we know when he's gonna kick the buckets. So it's the same guy. We knew that he liked chastity last time, so we can just pick chastity again. It won't always be chastity, but with this, as long as this guy is there, chastity will always work. We can become best friends with my wife. We have can lose some stress, and we can lose some stress. We can check. We don't have any stress, so we might as well become best friends. So we're just letting the days flip, trying to gain a claim on this settlement. So, here you can see we have a big chance to get a chunk of experience here. This guy is some wandering guy we don't give a shit about, so if he dies, you know. Just gaining a little bit of the experience, I would say is not really worth. I would basically always pick this one unless the options are terrible, so we're gonna pick this one. We did save him today, we got the experience. Sometimes he will die, that's sad. But now we got an acceptable warrior and a bunch of experience, so we're very happy about that little transaction. So, we can guaranteed be a journaler. We can have a 50% for athletic. Or we can make her become a... No, she's already a journaler. So, I think athletic is far better than being a journaler. Because the athletic gives you a small health boost, meaning you live longer, and that's fantastic. The exercise is pretty useless though, but the journaler honestly isn't that good. So I would gamble for the athletic in this particular scenario and hope we get it. We gained exercise. That's a shame. What happened with the claim though? Wait, did I get the claim? Oh, I got the claim. Wait, I didn't have to... What just happened? What? Why did I get the claim without paying? Is this a bug? Right now, gonna be honest, I have no clue how I got this claim without paying. I have never seen that before. But I'll take it. So we got a free claim somehow. I don't know how that happened. I'll definitely take it. It's just gonna cost us 50 to go for this region. We're not even gonna need our allies, so we're just gonna declare this war. We're gonna start another claim. So this guy has a teammate of him. This guy is scary, sort of. He has a lot of friends. He's friends with me, so we don't have to be too worried. So we want this settlement right here for it's a religious settlement. So we're gonna start getting a claim here while we're at war here. We'll just raise up all our boys and we'll go in here for a solid victory. Now we actually find out that this guy is also trying to grab this land, and he has a lot of soldiers, but they are all through his ally all the way over here. So, and he doesn't have any soldiers of his own, so we should be able to go in here and grab this zone before shit hits the fan and save ourselves. So that guy will send in a big scary ally, but that ally should not be able to save him before we grab this zone. And when this zone is grabbed, we are gonna win this war, which will net us a nice 200 gold. Boom. And then we can disband. So now we've made it to 280 gold. There's actually a few things you can do at this point. You can decide to build buildings, or you can decide to create the duchy. I like to create the duchy for the simple reason that by creating the duchy, I ensure that I don't lose land upon death. And I am sort of old. I am ailing. I could die any second. So creating this duchy right here ensures that on death, these two kids of mine will be my vassals and not their own rulers. What I also recommend is making Dublin here the capital instead, because Dublin is a duchy major holding, means you can build an extra building here, making it a more primed capital. We should also get some culture conversion on here. Then we can also, we have a prisoner that we can ransom away. He has claim for the duchy. We could abuse that. However, since we are also just Dutch, we actually can't. So we're just gonna send him off. Now we have 2 sons. I generally like to teach my children myself. If I have too many children, I'll obviously have to decide. But right now I don't have any children that are immediately way stronger than others. So this will do. Then we'll just flip on the time. This will be done in 21 months, so we're not gonna build too much else until then. What's this? Oh, we have another prisoner? Oh shit, never mind, then we can actually build something. So we got another 50 gold there, now we can actually build another building. So what buildings are the best? I usually, in every single settlement, build 1 farm, 1 military camp. If there's a trade port, I build a trade port. If there's not a trade port, I usually build a pastoral land instead. So wait, that's 1, 2, 3. And as a 4th building, I generally go for the wooden barracks. Some settlements have other buildings. Like this one here. In this settlement, you get the wetlands farm instead of the pastries. But yeah, most of the settlements you can build those for. So you get your wooden barracks, your farm, your trade port, and your military camps. Now, military camps is the building I will always have in every single settlement, for the one simple reason that we haven't talked about this. Actually, we haven't talked about men-at-arms. And the reason I will build a military camp in every single settlement, even though barracks are technically giving you more soldiers, is because, in my opinion, the best men-at-arms unit is the light footman. And why is the light footman the best unit in the game? Well, for one, the military barracks is pretty cheap building. But the thing with footmen is they have pursuit. Now, there are other units that has pursuit, like the horse. I think the horse is the 2nd best unit in the game. The horse now has way better pursuit than the light footman. But if we go in here and we check the hunting ground building, it gives defender advantage +2. This is a pretty useless stat to have in comparison. It only gives 0.2 gold and 0 men. So the military camp, I think, is a better building than the hunting ground. And this is why I prefer the military camp over the hunting ground. And this is the main reason why I prefer the light footmen over the horsemen. Just because their building is better. In my opinion. You're allowed to do different. I definitely think the light horseman spam is also very good. I prefer it way more though when you're playing someone who's down here, who have the camel riders. The camel riders are very powerful, and camel rider spam is very nice. So I would say that's a more powerful strategy than the other one. So right now we have a pretty nice income actually of 5 already, so I would definitely go for some men. So we're gonna get the military camp here running. In this one I almost always go for the ones that give 250 piety. It's just a more valuable option. It also lets you down the path of zealousness, which is a pretty nice trait, so I almost always go for this option. Here's another one that lets you go down the path of zealousness. Usually go for that one. You can go for other ones, but I usually try to make my character zealous if the option exists. So we're just letting time fly by, waiting for this claim to happen. So we have a few options. This early on in the game, I would definitely pick more gold. Like I stated, gold is so valuable, just gold, gold, gold. We're getting another claim done. And we can go for a nice little war on this guy. This guy actually has 800 men, and his teammate has 500. This one might be tricky, but we can call our allies if it gets tricky. We don't want to pay for it if we don't have to, but if this war gets tricky, the war is gonna get tricky because he actually came to support him. Okay, so we're getting smashed. So, what are we doing? Wait, I have a bunch of dynasty members I can call. I didn't know that. Well, we could call dynasty members. We're not gonna do that. We're gonna call our ally. We'll pay him. So this is obviously bad. I was hoping we wouldn't have to. But sadly, the game didn't like... Oh, we're getting smashed. They fucking insta-dropped. That sucks. We're gonna lose a few more soldiers than I would have liked, but it's quite alright. Our allies is coming, and then we're gonna win. So yeah, I went for a little gamble there. You definitely don't have to. You could just... If you don't wanna gamble, just call your ally right away. And then don't spawn in any units, and then when your ally is here, then you spawn in units. So now the ally is with us, so now we can just bomb rush over here. And we'll catch them and obliterate them. Now picking some traits, so we can go for calm, zealous, or brave. This guy is gonna be education focused. Then calm is in my opinion the best option, so I would make him a calm lad. And then we'll just go and destroy this guy. And this is why getting a solid ally early game is very nice. So on these ones I'll go for some prestige. We might need some more prestige. One of my sons died. He has another son, so... One thing you always want to keep an eye on is the succession, just to find out how that's going for you. We're gonna talk a bit about fixing succession later. So we got another win. And we have solidified us quite well at this point. All the other ones here are sort of weak and can't really do a lot against us. And this is generally how you solidify a solid start, is you need allies to keep yourself going. So you wanna make sure, on your first character, make sure you get, like I got, a strong ally. Now, he seems to have actually died, or no, the son. Yeah, right. This guy was the one who was married to his family. So this guy is no longer my ally, and that's what I mean. You need to keep an eye on these sort of things. He's no longer my ally, which means I'm now far weaker than I was 2 seconds ago. We do have some more children, so what we can do is check for other alliances. We can uncheck this and check for alliance power, and we can actually get this really strong ally down here. So we should probably do that. So we have a daughter. Daughters are generally used for alliance creation early game. Then later on you can use it for other things. So we can get this really powerful ally. We sadly can't go for this, but that's alright. We'll marry her off to him. And we'll have a very powerful ally in our pocket for future conquests. Wait. Shit. I don't think I've seen this before. France is actually... Wait, these guys have managed to be independent rulers? Damn, this has been a wonky start. So, what you... And then you kind of just want to keep on going, you know? You want to get your claims rolling and try and get a kingdom title as soon as possible. One thing we haven't talked about in here, I guess, I would say blood is just going 5 blood is honestly not a bad option. I basically always pick this one first. Getting traits running as soon as possible is so good. So sometimes I just run full here. Sometimes I go in here because getting more education is really nice. Sometimes I go for some control growth, pretty good to have. Some casus belli reduction can be nice. Generally never going guild. Education, not terrible, not great. So I generally go blood and kin. They make your rulers live longer and make them more powerful at what they do. So that's generally what I go for. But you can, like, getting the home estate law is pretty nice, honestly. Getting some stewardship lifestyle experience and some extra domain is nice. But yeah, I'd say blood by far the best. You wanna make sure you have some of this saved up though, because there's one more thing you can spend this on, and that is to disinherit children. So disinheritance, I don't have 75 renown, so I can't, but that's the cost. It's something that you wanna keep in mind, that you who's this? Oh, is he my dynasty? No. Oh, never mind, he is. There's there's a lot of houses in this starting dynasty. Anyway, that's kind of what you wanna be doing with those. I think I should exit out of this one and give a more more look at inheritance, how you wanna deal with that. So I should go for another playthrough. I can kind of show off a few other things, because that's generally like when you get to that point where I was in that playthrough, like you have a few thousand men, like almost 2,000 men, you can usually just keep on grabbing some more free land and kickstart it from there. I didn't talk too much about it, but what you want to do is you want to find a weak link. You want to find like the weak link that's like the easiest land to grab and just go from there. So one playthrough I did a little bit about yesterday, I think, was this one, which has a pretty we can have some look at. So I did start this one, as you could see on the save there, at 1066, and this has been pretty insane how quickly I managed to get the whole bowl rolling in this campaign. So I figured this is a pretty good example of what you really want to get rolling as soon as possible if you can when you're playing. We're in. Alright. So I started as... let's have a look. Nice lags. There we go. I started as the faction that has these 2 settlements here. I have since then given them to someone else, because these aren't very good settlements. Just to give you an idea of how I started this. So I am the... It's been about 100 years and we conquered Spain. We're sitting at a solid 27,000 men, making us about equal to the Holy Roman Empire, who in this playthrough is actually very powerful. Usually the Holy Roman Empire doesn't get this strong, and it makes us all about equal. So it makes us rival to the only 2 powers on the map that can even remotely rival us. Like most other big ones are sitting about 10,000 men. So we only really have 2 rivals at this point. Now, what's really strong about this is that we have managed to get both a Witch's Coven and the Strong Blood trait running early. This is incredibly powerful, and it's all thanks to this. And this is something that you really want to try and get going as soon as possible, is big traits. As you can see, we're sitting pretty at 5,000 gold with almost an 80 gold income pretty early on in the game, and yeah, we're getting a lot of everything, honestly. And one of the really big things, sadly, with the Witch's Coven, I can't do the Grand Rites, because this guy is actually not a witch, he's just part of the Coven, because our family made the Coven. So he's getting the Coven bonuses, but he can't do the Grand Rite, sadly. But he has the really powerful, like I talked about, the Extort Subjects trait. And we recently remade the religion. I actually went for some cannibal boys, so the next ruler I was actually gonna have him try and be a cannibal for some interesting stuff. We kind of recently converted, so there's still a bit of a split. The cities we're actually running with in this campaign are the island cities here. Because like I talked about earlier, this city has this very powerful building that can go all the way up to 9 gold, very solid. So this is a city you wanna hold on to. Some other cities we picked up were down here, were like Mecca, has another super powerful, and another powerful building there. So you wanna try and get your religious buildings as soon as possible. But what I generally wanted to mention was like how you can really get the ball rolling fast in a sort of campaign like this, because only in 100 years we went from tiny to honestly pretty huge. And you can do that a lot faster playing clan. I think playing as clan is the most powerful you can pick, because clan by default gets access to like conquer duchy on anyone, which is really quite strong and makes it very easy to get going there. Clan is basically like playing a feudal and tribal in one. It's like this insane mix, honestly. As you can see, for soldiers, I have just gone like full light footman, and this is a special light footman, so I've just gone like full light footman spam with some nice catapults for some extra siege potential. And this is really what I mentioned with the gold. Like, I have so much gold, and the reason for it is because of the because we have the extort subjects that I talked about earlier. If you can see here as well, just like I talked about earlier, I went for the golden, I went for the my domain. You can see that this guy, he's a fortune builder. He gets bonus in stewardship. And yet, what did I do? I went my domain, centralization, then I went learning, because he was gonna convert to religion, so I grabbed prophet, so that I could convert my religion into this cannibal thing for cheap. And then I just went into here for some more learning and some pedagogy for the children improvements, so that we can actually only have one ward right now, but I should have grab another ward here and keep on going with this character. So, and we're trying to get the divine right for more claim power. And as you can see, I basically picked what I talked about earlier. I went for this one though, because I was gonna go for some more children, and then obviously, like I said, I went for a cannibal one, but we got this one for the holy wars. And we went the poly, no bastards, allowed, unrestricted, accepted. Control, either, allowed, and temporal, making me the Pope, or whatever you want to call it. And because of that, let's say we click on this one, we can go Jihad for Kingdom, which means we can grab some. Now we own most of that already, but maybe if we clicked on England, see, we can Jihad and grab all of this. And this is the power of being able to go for something like this. Like, this is a lot of settlements. You can grab all that in one war when you're going as this. Now, going after the Christians can be scary. But it's something that's worth thinking about. Something I didn't talk about actually was also like in here the golden obligation, demand payment for hooks is kind of nice. You can get some extra solid money from that. Just gonna flip through the time here a little bit and try to just show one extort subject bonus as just to so we should have just found the holy order there. Kind of forgot to do that. And we should just flip through the time. So in here you can access all your cities pretty quickly to get building in them quicker. So I would definitely recommend using this little menu when you're trying to build to get through it as fast as possible. Egregious, greedy, lustful. Lustful is a virtue, so we'll give her lustful. Now this child is going places. She has 2 virtues. I think this is the one I wanted to be my heir. Which is also something that I wanted to show off a little bit. Like how do you best set up an heir? And I think honestly the easiest way to do an heir setup. So if we have a look right now on succession right now, there's a lot of people that are gonna get a bunch of things, and we don't want that. So what are the best way to make succession? Well, first of all, we have 2 people that don't like us. That's a problem. How would you fix this? Well, you can first of all try to demand conversion, but that's not gonna work because he doesn't like us. So we click on imprison, and somehow we actually have a high chance to succeed. So we'll try and see what happens. He didn't want to, so that means he started a war against us. We pretty much check this man is against us. They only have 6,000 men. It's obviously an easy win. He lives over here. So what do? We plank down our little flag up here. We just spawn in our main men and we just send them in to gank this guy. We managed to capture him pretty quickly. So we should be able to win this revolt very fast. The reason we're doing this is obviously because we want to be able to change what's going on in our kingdom, and these vassals don't want to let us. So we won that war in 3 seconds flat, and now, if we go back in here and try to change, this guy is now in jail, which means he approves. This guy still doesn't, so we're gonna once again try to ask him to go to jail. He went to jail. Lovely. So now we can change the gender laws. We wanted a female because we had this very nice double virtue, really nice stats female that we wanted to rule. So we're gonna go to female preference. It's important that we pick preference. We can't pick only because of our laws, but we're gonna go preference. We change the law. Wabam. Now we don't have as many heirs, but we still have a bunch of heirs. And we don't want that. Now the easiest way is obviously when you get to this time, you just go into primignature and you're done. Then you will only have 1. But that's not how it is for us yet. So how do we fix this mess? We want this girl to inherit, not this girl. She's a drunk. We don't want her. She's a craven drunk. Like, we don't want her. So how can we fix this? Well, we can go in here and disinherit her. Now granted, this cost 150 of this, and preferably we wouldn't want to pay that much. But in this case I will, because she already has children, and it can be messy to get rid of it when she has. So we're gonna disinherit her. That removed 1 from the list. This girl also has a bunch of children, so we're gonna do the same for her. Then we're gonna check again. This woman, she doesn't have children. Now, we could let her have children, but her traits aren't as good. So what we can do with her is simply tell her, go to jail. And this woman, she's pretty solid. She doesn't have children either, but she has way better stats. So we're probably gonna disinherit her. But that one we didn't disinherit. We sent her to jail. I hope it worked. There we go. She went to jail. And then what we can simply do once she's in jail is just execute her. Ba-bam. And now we've fixed this. So the thing that I talked about is she didn't have children, so executing her just removes her. If I were to execute her that has children, then the children would become next in the inheritance. So if we, for example, said we wanted this woman to inherit, then we would simply execute her, then she would be our main inheritance. So you have to kind of think about who you want to be your ruler, and then go from there. So we managed to set her up as the ruler. We got a little bit of a peasant revolt, but that's quite alright. We can clean that up pretty quickly. Because we are very strong, obviously, in this particular save. And another trick we can use here. So the revolters are over here now, but we're here. So you, instead of paying money to sail, you simply disband, move, and this is why I only raise local and then instantly exit gathering, because that means I only spawn in my special soldiers, and they can instantly just teleport across the map. Don't ask me why this is a thing in the game. It's just it, and then you can just disband and you can teleport them elsewhere. So we can just look through. We know that the others are gonna be down here somewhere, probably. Over here? No. There they are. So we're gonna hunt them down. We'll spawn them in here. We'll remove that and we'll go hunting for peasants. That's still not all. We'll just send them right back here. And we can disband them again. Now where is the last ones? He's not showing up, so I'm actually not sure where he is. Because these kind of peasants should only spawn on your settlements, and I don't think I have any other settlements. So I'm honestly a bit confused where the peasants are. This is weird. Mallorca is under siege. So here's the rest of the peasants. We'll just do the same thing. We'll put this in, we'll spawn it down, and we'll slam them in there, and done. We managed to capture some peasanty boys. But yeah, I guess that's most of what I wanted to talk about. If you have any other questions, what I think or how you struggle with certain things, just ping me on Twitch or YouTube, and I'll answer and help you out with that. But yeah, for now I guess that's it for the guide. This should help you knowing on how and where to establish yourself as a competent and powerful ruler. And yeah, thank you, and bye bye.